some people ask me to speak about the Gulf, I normally say that you have got the wrong brother because I have never served in the Gulf, basically because I was in a multilateral framework most of the time. And this time when I said that, you invite my brother, he said, no, but we are inviting both of you. So I had no choice, so I am here. So do not expect any particular expertise on my side on the Gulf. But Gulf interests all of us, and we also tend to visit the Gulf more than any other region in our own private and personal interests. And the last few years, particularly since 2014, the growth in our relationship with Gulf has been very impressive. When Mr. Modi went to UAE for the first time, there were some kind of concerns as to whether he will be able to develop happy relations with the Gulf, given his preference for a particular community or a religion. So I asked one of the leading Gulf businessmen, everybody knows him, but I don't want to mention his name. I asked him on a television interview as to what would happen when Mr. Modi comes there. Wouldn't there be prejudices? Wouldn't there be hesitation? Then he has no hesitation in saying, he asked me, who is our best friend? Who is UAE's best friend in the world today? So I said, I presume it is the United States. And what is the religion of the United States? Has religion prevented us from having a good relationship with the United States? So he assured me at that time that there will be no problem, no prejudice. And this has become even more than we expected. He has visited UAE 7 times. So obviously the action is in the Gulf, particularly in the UAE. And there's considerable progress in every field. But what my brother said in the morning, I think, is perhaps the answer. We are doing right things at a little late in life. Because he said we should have started 20 years ago. That would have been a better way to deal with it. And so what we are seeing is that we are trying to develop a relationship and direct it to the benefit of both the countries. And having laid the foundation not specifically for each other. 20 years ago, when we made our plans and UAE made their plans, or the other Gulf countries, we did not consider each other as a potential partner. So what has happened is, now there is a basis, a structure, we have our own allies and our own business partners and everything. And now that we have a political relationship, we are trying to adopt all their practices, all their institutions to suit the India factor. I think that seems to be the issue. And that is difficult because then you have to be very flexible and also cannot give away your other alliances and so on. So we have started a little late, but better late than never. And therefore, I think we have to look at it, all the problems that we face in this relationship, from the point of view of our trying to, not to build, but to renovate a relationship. And that has its own challenges. Anyway, we have a very eminent panel of experts. And there are 2 categories of people in the panel. One is education, but actually education is only one. So, but the others, 3 of them are basically in health. And one is, of course, a prominent entrepreneur and investment specialist. What I would like to do is to leave your introduction to yourself so that in one sentence you can summarize better than I could do. And therefore you could first say what you really do. And the second is to give an overall view on the subject in about 3 minutes each. Because the questions should come later, and if questions may not be necessary if you already touched upon those. Therefore, that's what I'm planning to do, to ask each one of you to say something about yourself, and also say what you think in a few minutes about India, Gulf relations from your perspective. And then we go on to questions very kindly prepared by the CPPR.
I'm Dr. Hafiz, and I'm the chairman of Sunrise Group of Hospitals. We have hospitals basically in India, mostly in Kerala, Bombay, and Delhi. Then we had a good presence in the Gulf country, especially UAE, for the last 20 years, and we have a good presence in Africa, that is in Congo and Nigeria. We are one of the largest hospital in Africa and Congo. We had a very good presence in UAE, especially for the last 20 years. And if you see the scenario in UAE before 20 years, we are basically healthcare providers, not into healthcare manufacturing or pharmaceutical. We run hospitals. So if you see long back in Dubai or in UAE especially, most of the healthcare hospitals were belonging to an Indian company basically. Almost 80% of them were Indian hospitals. But today, if you see the scenario has completely changed. You have Saudi, Lebanese, and so many other even US hospitals which have come in GCC, and the scenario is completely changed. And today, I think the Indian hospital or the Indian presence in the healthcare provider industry would be just maybe 10 to 15%. So it's been eroded by many other countries in UAE. UAE or entire GCC, I would say. So we need to really think of that scenario, why it happened, and what we should do across to increase the presence of healthcare providers in the entire Gulf or GCC.
GEMS education is very famous not only in the region, elsewhere. The one thing which struck me most was they give a prize for the best education in the world, and the prize is $1 million. So that itself gives an idea of what GEM institution is. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Francis Joseph. I represent the India opportunity for GEMS education. Just to give you a background, GEMS education was started almost 65 years back when, a husband and wife moved from here to Dubai. It was as humble as that as a story. And they started teaching, and from there, the son, Mr. 𝗁𝗵𝗃 took over. And today we are scaled across 8 countries, including India. We have more than 170,000 students. And the most complex being, we have more than 176 plus nationalities studying in our schools. And that's complex because in a classroom, diversity is very beneficial for learning, but also for a teacher, it's very complex because it has to meet the needs of every child. Like Sir mentioned about the $1 million prize which 𝗁𝗃 Foundation gives as a global teacher prize, the objective is just to highlight that teaching as a profession is the most respected, and we wanted to create and uplift the profession. That was the whole idea behind it. And yesterday only they announced the top 50 for the coming prize. It was announced yesterday. We have also in India, we are present in India. We do around 40 plus schools. We have one school in Smart City, Kochi Smart City. It's an IB Cambridge school. We're starting a CBSE there. Plus we have in Gurgaon. Plus we do around more than 35 affordable schools where we charge hardly 15,000 a year. Many people don't know about it, but that's something which is very close to the chairman. And chairman being from India, he's from Kerala, Mr. 𝗁𝗵𝗃. I think his heart really beats for India. The future is, we are, in the month of February, you will hear some announcements about a joint venture in India. We are going to partner with a very large industry player with an intent to ensure that skills are integrated in school education. And that's a sort of formula we are trying to solve, which we will attempt. And we are trying to evolve with the way schools are made and how teaching and learning happens in the system. So that's a bit about us.
And we turn to Mr. 𝗠𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗃, who is an investor and entrepreneur, and we'll hear from him.
Thank you, Ambassador. Little correction over there. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur from a perspective of investing in India, but I'm also representing as CFO and IC member at 𝗃 Investments, which is backed by one of the largest, oldest, biggest family-owned businesses in Middle East. It's the Kanu family. We have operating presence in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, Oman. There's a global investing program by the family, which is across the world. And 𝗃 per se is primarily a fund of a fund program with focus on private equity and venture capital investing around the world. With our main focus is rather allocation of our capital largely is towards US, Europe, which is almost 85%. And then the remaining 15% is for the rest of the world. But India is such an important partner to us. We're a firm believer of India. I think the growth opportunities here and the relationship, the way it's evolving in the last 10 years has resulted into we backing 7 private equity venture capital funds which are focusing on Indian ecosystem. Along with that, I also have the pleasure of being on the board of the largest primary healthcare of UAE. And I'm on the advisory board of 3 venture capital funds in India, which are closely deploying around $1 billion in tech ecosystem, Indian companies. I also have the pleasure of backing India's biggest incubator, the largest accelerator, have backed over 35 companies in India. You know, those who understand Hindi, I would just say that India is so close to my heart कि that दूरी तो बहुत है मगर पास रहकर ही कोई खास नहीं होता. ये देश इस कदर पास है मेरे दिल के, मुझे दूरी का एहसास नहीं होता कि मुझे दूरी का एहसास नहीं होता. So I think we'll certainly cover. I think the biggest takeaway today, Ambassador, would be that UAE or GCC being the capital surplus market, there's extraordinary amount of wealth and capital which has got generated in the last 50 years in that market. And that capital is always looking for new opportunities, and that capital is all flowing to US, Europe. And the question is that in spite of great friendship, how do we attract that capital to India? And I think India can do more, attract, the family offices. If you look at the sheer size of family offices in the Middle East, they're family offices with deployable capability of in the range of $500 million to $40 billion. And they would be a less than 4 to 5% of that allocation coming to India. And I think I would be looking forward to really assess that what can we do better to ensure that our share from of that capital flowing to India increases at least from 5% to 10%, to ensure the vision of the Prime Minister to ensure that India is a $5 trillion economy in 2030, because it will certainly need a lot of capital support. So happy to contribute in that discussion going forward.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ramanathan, in the field of Ayurveda.
I am Ramanathan, Managing Director of Sitaram Ayurveda. It started in 1921, 105 years back. In Ayurveda is a mainly focused 5 areas. One is manufacturing. Second is manufacturing, meaning the generic product and proprietary medicine and cosmetics. And fourth one is the service industry. The service industry means it is a wellness, preventive and curative. The wellness, preventive, curative means recently you are mentioned very famous in 𝗃𝗃 treatment. For the Ayurveda manufacturing side, the main product is a generic product. The generic products mean what mentioned in the textbook, Ayurveda basic, that is a generic product. Nowadays, except Kuwait, all the GA countries is approved for registration, including our Kashayan tablet, all the slowly approved, but some delay is there, but that is a good sign for the future for the GA countries. And third one is cosmetics, very popular, that is also done with our soaps and very good market. And finally, it's come to the service area. The service area, there is mainly after the COVID, everybody is interested now the preventive healthcare, especially the lifestyle disease. Compared to the UAE countries, 20% of people are suffering after China, India, is diabetes because of their lifestyle. So that area is slowly interested now. Most of the UAE countries, people came to India, especially in Kottakkal and Kozhikode. That is the main problem, language barrier. So other states, they are getting good patients from the whole area also. And the wellness is slowly promoted. More than 200 Ayurvedic doctors are practicing in Gulf countries nowadays. That is already started the practice. So all the area Ayurveda is promotion. As per my concern, I have a good manufacturing unit, first GMP factory in India, and we are moving to WHO GMP now. Next 2 years, we are going to WHO GMP. The main problem now in the Ayurveda industry, that is documentation and research paper. So we can proper documentation, research paper, and pharmacovigilance established. We can very very fastly move to the Ayurvedic product all over the UAE countries. That is the main problems we are facing. Now we are already started documentation and research, and whatever the need of the document required as per the WHO standards of GMP, Government of India is now already started, and also some agreement with the except Kuwait, all the GA countries have signed. That is Ayurveda is already approved system is already, Government of India already signed the GA countries also. So for another main problem they are facing in the people, the running the institution as per the accreditation area, that definitely we can help it. We are already started in Azerbaijan, in Russia, is going on running very well now because all the skilled people we are supplying, medicine, all the equipments we are supplying. So anybody is interested in the UAE countries, definitely we can franchise-wise, and all the condition, whatever need, we can provide. So that is a success. Only system for your information, only the system people came to other states only for Ayurveda. Nobody is going to Chinese medicine or homeopathy. Only allopathy people, allopathy medicines are going to outside India. But anywhere they are attracted for the treatment, preventive aspect, only for Ayurveda.
Good afternoon once again. I'm basically an anesthetist and intensivist, born and brought up in Oman, a perfect example of how GCC has allowed many of us Indians to study and then live there comfortably and then come back also again and work. And I would like to appreciate the benevolence of the Omani government also for that. We have His Excellency the Ambassador also with us. I represent the Indian Medical Association as well today. The Indian Medical Association is one of the largest professional organizations in the world with more than 4.5 lakh registered members all over the world. And I was entrusted with the responsibility to get all the doctors overseas, to give back and to be connected with our roots to the country. And we have been working hard at it for the last 2 years. We are looking at all possible ways of interaction, between the doctors, between the facilities that they work for, and how this connection could benefit both sides from the GCC and India as well. Today's India's Look West policy in action, that's the topic of discussion. If you ask me to summarize, this topic, I would just say energy binds us, trade drives us, and trust sustains us. The good relationship between both these sides have to continue, and I think this relationship will bring a lot of good things for the world in the future. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hafiz Rahman, you are the owner or managing director of Sunrise Hospitals. So we hear that you are slowly withdrawing from the Gulf region. And if you could tell us what exactly has happened in terms of your moving away to other places. There may be a particular reason for it. But How is it going? Is India going to step in, or you are going to step into India in this process of moving out of?
Yeah, I think you have put in a very controversial topic in the beginning. So, we have been in the Gulf sector for the last 20 years. So, I'll take it like a history, what happened and things like that. Like, in the initial period, the insurance sector in the Gulf was not that active. And the initial period, the type of healthcare which we used to provide or any hospital used to provide was basically the primary and secondary healthcare. It was not something like tertiary or quaternary kind of healthcare like organ transplants or cardiac surgeries, or like cardiac surgeries have come very recently in the Gulf sector, or neurosurgeries, or very major kind of healthcare which was being provided in the Gulf sector. Now, slowly what happened is the insurance companies have come in, and the insurance sector, I think in UAE and all, it's like almost, even though say 100% insured country, it's almost like 95, 96% insurance, and medical insurance is almost like compulsory. So the insurance sector has become a very large player and controlling kind of player in the healthcare industry. So what happens with the insurance sector, it's not only Gulf, it's all over the world, is that the insurance sector doesn't differentiate the secondary and tertiary and quaternary kind of healthcare. Because for the insurance sector, say suppose you do a cardiac surgery, there are different kind of cardiac surgery. But the insurance sector pays one amount for entire range of cardiac surgeries, or the cost doesn't much differ between the complexity of the treatment. So it's basically the, now even it's going into the diagnostic related treatment. If you have a diagnosis of this disease, the treatment, whatever complex be the treatment, the insurance sector pays an X amount depending on the diagnosis of the disease. So this has actually, what happened is this has actually corrupt the financial aspect of healthcare which is happening in the Gulf sector. That is one reason. And another thing which happened is many of these insurance companies were basically government-owned insurance companies. So the payments, it happens everywhere, all over the world. It's not blame game or anything. The payments doesn't come for even 6 months, 8 months, 1 year. So some of the players had a lot of difficulties in the Gulf sector with the insurance companies not giving the payment. Now, what is the solution to all this which is happening? Solution is basically based on the regulations which can be brought in by the government. The government has tried a lot into the regulations which can be brought in, like the costing can be controlled, like DHA, the Dubai Health Authority, and 𝗬𝗏 is basically the Abu Dhabi Health Authorities. The government can bring in the regulations which control the cost. It is not just a business deal between the healthcare provider and the insurance company. The government can, the regulatory authorities can interfere and bring in the cost or understand the difference between a secondary healthcare and tertiary healthcare, and regulate the cost of the treatment which can be given in this kind of situation. Now, another issue is that, see, healthcare in GCC, even today, even though India is one of the, or Indian doctors are one of the best doctors in the entire GCC or entire Gulf. Like when we were initially there, almost I think 60% of the doctors who were having good practice or who were the best doctors were Indian doctors. But still, I would say today, the healthcare authorities actually do not recognize the credibility of Indian doctors in GCC. I'll tell you an example. If you have an Indian degree, whatever be the credential of the doctor, you need to go through an exam. But at the same time, if you have an MRCP or MRCOG and all those European degrees and the West degrees, you don't have to go through any exam. You straight away get a registration in the Gulf. So this is something which we really can work on it, and this is something which can take our involvement in the Gulf a lot more forward in the Gulf countries.
All right. Obviously, you have weighed your advantages and disadvantages. And when we think of UAE, two positive things come up whenever we discuss business in the Gulf. One is that they are very well regulated. They respect entrepreneurship. They are very modern, their approach to technology. What we hear or read in the newspaper when you go to Dubai, you see it in actual reality, like 3D printing, for example. We're reading about 3D printing and wondering how it will work, and there is a building right in the middle of Dubai. And now the future museum, for example, the kind of things that you see are very futuristic. That is one strong point. And the other point is the presence of Indian doctors and Indian workers in Dubai. So, do these things have not helped you in planning your future? And are you likely to move to India by any chance?
External picture or very futuristic picture of Dubai, it's not the same in the entire GCC. It's completely different when you go to Bahrain or Oman and other countries. But specifically when you look at healthcare or the basic treatment, I think India has a very much lot to offer, and the Indian hospitals are much far ahead of what you see in the Gulf countries. So
Even
that
like
is what,
Aster, for example?
much ahead. If Indian Asters are much ahead of what you see in even Aster itself, Aster in Dubai and Aster in Cochin. Aster in Cochin is much ahead in the healthcare treatment basically. So if the tertiary or quaternary healthcare gets recognized in the GCCs, the cost has to be recognized properly, because cost involved in that level of healthcare treatment is very high. So if the cost is recognized in the Gulf countries for that level of healthcare treatment, then there is a huge scope of taking Indian healthcare into GCC countries. I'm not talking about the primary healthcare. I'm not talking about just a small surgery or a daycare surgery and such things, where they do not recognize that cost difference between the tertiary and quaternary kind of healthcare and primary healthcare.
Well, this is true even in other countries. United States, you have to take a test, even if you are a highly qualified doctor from here. And initially they send you to faraway places till they really prove themselves. So that, I think, is a part of the game, particularly in medicine.
See, one difference in the Indian doctors, Indian doctors, they work on huge volumes of patients, volumes of data. Like suppose you take a surgeon, the number of surgeries an Indian doctor has done, it's impossible to match in any other country. So the surgical skill of our doctors is much more higher. So if the healthcare regulators can recognize this surgical skill, whichever way, whether it can be a government to government kind of thing. So if it can be recognized, then there is a big scope of collaboration of Indian doctors into these Gulf countries. Not only Gulf countries, anywhere in the world. See, I have done the first laparoscopic cancer surgery in UAE. This was 20 years back. But even today, laparoscopic cancer surgeries are not developed the way it is developed in India. In India, we have gone very far ahead, basically because it doesn't become viable to do that kind of a cancer surgery in UAE, because the cost doesn't allow. The cost in UAE is much, much higher than the basic cost which we incur in India. So we need to get the top end also that high. So if you do not get that cost, it will not be viable, and it will be difficult to develop that kind of higher end treatments in Gulf countries.
And in Africa, which countries are you looking at?
Africa, we are into Congo basically. We have 3 hospitals in Congo and 1 hospital in Nigeria.
And that situation is better than what you see today?
No, African situation is completely different. Hardly 10% is insurance. So the costs are regulated by the healthcare providers, and of course to some regulation with the government also. But Africa, the situation presently is, see, the cost in Africa is almost 3 to 4 times of the cost in Bombay. If you see the cost in Bombay and Africa, is huge difference. But at the same time, if you see whether Africans are rich enough, 10% of African population or 20% of African population may afford a private healthcare. But you have hospitals only to cater to almost 5% of African population only. So you have much higher scope in African countries compared to the many other countries. But as all of you know, the problems in African countries are completely different. It's not just the cost, It's basically the regulations and the political scenario and the safety of your investment.
Well, the other experts on the panel on health may be able to supplement what you are saying. So can we turn to education, Francis Joseph? I've been to several schools in not only UAE but Oman and other places. They are very good schools, better than the schools in India. But they are all oriented towards higher education elsewhere but not in India. Why I discovered it? Because some people got the idea that we could get Indian nationals in Dubai or other Gulf countries interested in the Indian civil services, because that's the most challenging thing that a young Indian can get. But there is no awareness of it generally, and whatever attempt was made to create an institution failed because they didn't have enough people. So when I did some research on the syllabus, etc., then I discovered that there is no orientation towards India in any of these. Because civil service examination is very India-oriented. You must know Indian history, you must know Indian politics. And how has this happened when the best schools are Indian like your own? Why can't we encourage students to look at higher education in India and prompt them to in that direction? And that will be cheaper for them. The parents may be back in India, and if they get into the civil service, it will be a major change in their lifestyles.
Yeah, so there is no doubt and which we were also discussing about the way education used to be very localized, right? Always. I mean, even when a teacher teaches in a school, she usually looks at the local context and teaches. That's how even a teacher runs a classroom. And that's good education because you can connect to the local. But if you see last few years, the way CBSE is also reforming itself with the national education policy being announced.
CBSE office in Dubai, right?
Yeah, there is a CBSE office, so it's more getting customized also. But I think the national education policy is bringing this element pretty strong, right? That yes, you learn about the world, but you remain connected to your roots. Even in India, I mean, this problem is not just in Gulf. Even you go to an international school, maybe in a Bangalore or a Hyderabad, they might be dancing to hip hop, not to a local Indian dance. So the problem is there in the system. But I think now what we are seeing also, even in India, there are a lot of frameworks, policy frameworks we developed to bring culture in the front. Like if you go to schools in Dubai, the way they teach children about their culture, their history, the language, they almost get localized, right? And that element was also missing in India when it came to Indian schools also, which is now getting improved. And I was very happy that I was part of a project some years back for the government of Maharashtra, where we established an education board for the local language. This was much before anything, much before the national education policy. And we started seeing vernacular schools getting shut down because of no children, because everyone is rushing towards an English medium school. And slowly and steadily, we started with 10, did more 50, we landed up with 100 over the next 3 years. And the dropouts started getting arrested and it started improving. So it's not that a language is not powerful. Regional languages are very powerful as a medium, right? It's not about language, because you can always teach English to children, but teaching your regional language is very, very critical. And unfortunately, that board was shut down due to political reasons. But that experiment always says that in India, when you try to do something, there are challenges. But now I think with the CBSE ensuring that culture, history, languages, especially the local languages, has to be pushed more, I think it is getting more and more strengthened. And I mean, every international school in the state of Maharashtra today teaches Marathi. It was not the case before, but now it's the case. I mean, everyone, at least, I mean, you don't need to assess the children, but you can at least, the child should be able to at least speak, at least communication-wise. So I think local culture is getting of prime importance, and that is also applying to the schools in Gulf, in my view. I just wanted to add one point from just threading, because we are an organization which was totally blessed in Dubai, right? I mean, we are looking at healthcare, we are looking at education, and the kind of trust we have got on the education system there, right? I mean, we are learning so much from Dubai, especially the policy frameworks. I'll tell you, whenever I meet any kind of governments, even in India, I talk to them about the inspection process which happens in Dubai schools. It is so well managed, right? And because Dubai has got the maximum number of international schools in the world, it's very complex, it's not easy. But in spite of that, running an inspection process and bringing so much transparency means every parent will able to know that this is a good school or an average school. There is a complete, and you can actually read everyone's report. If I have to put my child in a school, there is transparency. I can know that what is the strength, right? Not based on the school advertisement. The real experts going and actually checking. So the way education is transparent, I keep telling people out here, saying that there's lots to learn of transparency, and that is very, very critical. But we are enjoying a good, GEMS is planning to expand more in Gulf. We are also expanding to Saudi. We're already present in Qatar, Egypt, and hopefully we're going to double our turnover in Middle East.
Has NEP made any difference to your teaching methods? I consider it.
It is an aspirational document, and I think it will take, one cycle of children to go out, right? I think that students who are sitting in the classroom, I think when they become teachers, probably in the future, by then we will start seeing. It will take one cycle. It's not easy. Everything, right?
My view is that NEP is indeed a revolutionary document. And that is why the government of India asked a rocketeer to write it. Not any one of us who are supposed to be educationists. Why? Because it is here to go beyond the space and try and see solutions. But what has happened is, it has become a kind of menu card for colleges and schools. You pick up A, B, C, D. That will not work. Because what is envisaged is a total change in educational system. And that is where it is not going to have its full impact. Okay, let me turn to Mr. Mehta now. How can Indian business position themselves to attract more direct investments? What challenges do you foresee in cross-border investments between India and UAE?
Allow me to elaborate from a perspective that there's no restriction on capital export out of GCC. So what does that mean? That means that the 200 nations across the world, in the globe, are a potential investment opportunity for people like us who are managing capital out of Middle East. When you look at India, India is no longer just coming to GCC and say, hey, listen, here is an opportunity. Is actually in the background in our mind is like, I'm comparing that opportunity with hundreds of other opportunities that are lying in front of us across the globe. So the question here is that how do we ensure that there's a conducive environment created in the mindset of the perception of the investor that, listen, this is the best opportunity. So I'll give you an example. So what investor is largely chasing is chasing great returns. Great return comes out of great growth. India has abundance of that. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So that box is ticked. In terms of the perception around the government support, I think that has greatly, in a very positive manner, changed in last 13, 14 years. I'll give you an example, Ambassador, that many years ago when, let's say, a fund manager, a private equity fund manager from India comes to Middle East and say, hey, listen, look at India, out of an hour of the meeting time, 30 to 40 minutes will go in explaining, hey, in Asia, here is India and here is the opportunity. And then he talks about the India story, and by the time he really talks about his fund and about his credentials, 15 minutes of the meeting is already gone. That entire work has been taken away by Modi Sahab and his team. Today, India's story has been selling. We no longer have to sell that story. So where exactly the issue is? The issue is around the corporate governance. And I know I'm surrounded by diplomats here, but I'm not going to be very diplomatic about it because it's about heart-to-heart communication. And India has come a long way in corporate governance. But there are two aspects of corporate governance. Within the corporate governance is about the integrity, the honesty, the transparency. And because of the sheer size of 1.4 billion people, we have people of all kinds. So the question here is that from a foreign investor, if there's a nodal agency in India that say, hey, listen, like CPPR, I made this suggestion a couple of weeks back to the chairman of 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and I said, our idea was that, listen, curate certain businesses in a certain sector, rate them within India, and say, these are the parameters and these are the kind of guys, you need to talk to. If that filtration happens, I think that would attract a lot of capital. That is one part, but that is only 50% of that. The second part is ensuring, because see, investor is not worried about investment going bad, because that is the intrinsic risk. The risk we have undertaken, we understand it, and we're okay to play with that. But the issue is that if there's a legal hurdle, if there's a fraud which is happening, and if it goes sub judice, how do we ensure timely, a legal solution or dispute resolution by the judiciary system in India? I have a lot of respect for that, but it has to come in timely manner. If it's not coming in timely manner, it takes away the desire of the investor to come directly in India. So what would happen, in my humble opinion, is that India would attract a lot of capital through fund routes, your AI routes, and I think there's a lot of capital coming. We have backed 7 funds in India. That's a great story. It's actually putting a layer between Indian entrepreneur and us and saying, hey, fund manager, you understand the nitty-gritties of India, you understand the local politics, the dynamics, you know how to manage people, you know how to identify the right promoter, the bad promoter. Here is the capital, play with it. I'm happy to give you 2% management fee and I'm going to happy to give you 20% profit share of the money you make for me. But for attracting direct investment, which is the real game changer for India, that will come only and only when it's just not about dialogue, it's about the transparency through corporate governance and ensuring timely, legal, disposal of any grievances which arise out of it. We have folks like Dhanuraj and other people here, and I would like to make a suggestion here that you cannot have two legal frameworks for foreign investors and Indian investors is well understood. It's also difficult, the Indian people understand, fine, if this goes sub judice, this will take 20 years to find a solution to it. We can go through arbitration route, that is a separate matter. But those are very expensive exercises. Those are good for large sovereigns. But investors of our size, which are sizable but not to the size of the sovereigns, the government should look in India is that give little special treatment that, listen, if a dispute arises, we will come up with not a solution but a disposal to your grievances within 2 years, 3 years with this is your lower court, this is your high court and supreme court, there's a special court around it. This will change the entire game around foreign direct investment coming to India. And I think we have to think about some out-of-the-box solutions. Is anybody else providing that kind of treatment to GCC capital? No, it's not. But why should we not extend that red carpet to that capital so that it supports our growth in India? That is how I look at it.
Your own share of business in India is only 5% of your...
So far, total capital, our allocation towards India is 5%, which is still sizable. I would say that a lot of other family offices, it would be less than 1% or 2%. They're still dipping their toe and trying to understand that how India is really, respecting their capital. I think, as I said, AIF is a great solution. These funds, the alternative investment funds, both in private and venture capital space, because they are SEBI-regulated. The Indian sovereign like SIDBI and SRI are playing a major role. They're deploying capital. They are they are going through the IC process of those larger funds. It gives a lot of comfort to us. But even if you move from 5% to 10%, which is quite possible in the near future, you still need to do those two things, especially on the corporate governance side.
Okay, out of curiosity, lots of rich people are moving to Dubai, Abu Dhabi with their money. What do they do with it? They only buy buildings, or do they invest? Do they have the opportunity to invest? Do they feel comfortable investing?
I think listen, there's no data available, but out of my interaction with people with large capital, when a decision maker moves to Middle East, it's a very aspirational life he wants to live. There's a extraordinary wealth they bring, but that doesn't mean that wealth is getting deployed in UAE or GCC. The decision making certainly has moved over there, and they come along with their ecosystem to that part of the world. Similar to the Middle Eastern capital, as I said at the very beginning of the onset, that we are a capital surplus region, and that capital is always chasing growth. So even these billionaires who are coming in, they are looking at opportunities across the world. And apart from fewer investors in investments in building and other things, which is for their comfort, I believe maybe 90% of that capital is still getting deployed outside in opportunities elsewhere.
Is it legitimate, authorized to do Ayurveda in the Gulf? One question. And I had the impression that a lot of people from the Gulf come for treatment into Kerala, Ayurveda treatment. But yesterday I saw a lady who had just arrived from Dubai, and I asked her, will you do some Ayurveda when you are here? She said, what is Ayurveda? She didn't seem to know. Then I told her that, this is very popular in UAE and many people come here, very good resorts are here, etc. So she said, give me an address or something like that. So I was surprised by this. Is it really prevalent that everyone aspires to go to Kerala for Ayurveda, or is it only a very small, minuscule community?
Complementary system of medicine. Complementary system medicine, more than 20 to 30 type of complementary system. But WHO recognizes 3 systems. One is Chinese medicine, another one is Ayurveda, third one is homeopathy. So compared to the homeopathy and Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, what is the difference, main difference? Both areas, the Chinese medicine, homeopathy, only for the medicine only, for the curative only. But Ayurvedic side, that is a treatment in Panchakarma and preventive aspects and wellness area and future rejuvenation, all area very focused for the Ayurvedic aspect. That is the difference of the Ayurveda and other complementary of system medicine. That is, I mentioned that most of the people are coming to India only for this way of the Ayurvedic knowledge. They are getting, suppose anybody is coming to my retreat. So they are after the 14 days, immediately they rebook for next year. No broker now. Now that type of the developments or people are interested in Ayurveda. So why the government is now, Ayush department already started. All areas they are already started with more than 30 countries already started the agreement with the international level of the agreement from board and some university level of the discussions are also going on now. So what is the main lack now? That is Ayurveda, there is lack of the research. So that is a documentation. Now the documentation and pharmacovigilance, everything are proved, we are established properly the international level, the Ayurveda popularized very fast. So main problem that is Ayurveda is creating some problem for health. No, there is a proper way that is of medicine. Now we are have everything, pesticides, heavy metal, everything GMP standard, full mark, everything standardization, all the pest control department, every standardizations are there. And treatment also we are going on. But unfortunately, what is this type of the main focus, we are not established international level. So that is your question is very clear. Ayurveda, most of the only 0.1% people still know Ayurveda in the GCC countries also. I can search for that. 1 million people, more than 1 crore of people, the Indians are the GCC countries. But that influence also we can establish, we can popularize very fast. I think my answer is clear. Yeah. How to popularize Ayurveda, that is only now government of India started some exhibition when the DGFT and government Ayush also, some fund also every year they are conducting. So that is only not possible. That level of media level, digital media, we can popularize very fast. What is the lifestyle disease? I already mentioned that.
So really there is no possibility of people going and investing in Ayurveda in the Gulf. They have to come here. Because in Europe, for example, there is no ban on any use of Ayurveda. Germany, full of Ayurvedic clinics, Vienna, Austria.
So, Ambassador, it's very interesting. As an investor, I'm not as learned as the doctor next to me, but as an investor, we have backed through our funds 2 or 3 Ayurvedic initiatives. One is in classical Ayurveda space, 100-year-old institution. We are firm believers of Ayurveda, great magical, I think that the perception is very positive around Ayurveda. If you go to Kottakkal in Kerala, you will find special treatments being given, not treatments, like the special privilege has been extended to Arabs. There are the buildings just dedicated to them for their treatment. So their deep understanding is there. The challenge is evidence-based Ayurveda is taking a beating. I think we do not bring enough research around it. But the 𝗃𝗃 Ayurveda is doing exceedingly well, and there where the brand building is happening, and we're deploying capital in that part through the funds we have backed. So you will find the ashwagandhas, the shilajits, which are really properly researched and going viral across the world. It's US, it's Middle East, OTC medicines, that will do exceedingly well. Your other Ayurveda like Kama Ayurveda to other things, these are like, established stories around Indian Ayurveda space, but that's still not classical Ayurveda. For classical Ayurveda, the way I see the way forward is great institutions coming to Middle East and then partnering with us. We are open to joint ventures. It's just not about us. Larger families have that respect for Ayurveda, and they will be happy to invest dollar for dollar, navigate the local landscape along with the experts like the doctor, and extend that support in the Ayurveda space to the people around. I think, as I said, the issues around the formulations and how do we convince the medical, the regulators that it is all okay. So that has to be evidence-based. I think work is happening, but hopefully very soon we'll get there. But capital is available and we're happy to support.
200 Ayurvedic doctors are practicing in GCC countries now. That is the main issue, that is Ayurveda, classical aspects. That study is more need. That level of applies to patient is different, sir. Not individual, but modern medicine is a blood test and everything. But our approach is totally different. Patient to patient, prakriti, that level of the approach we can manage, the success rate is fantastic. But unfortunately, that level of the understanding, cooperation with the patient and doctor needs some support from the government side also. Otherwise, it is immediately 14 days, 21 days, we're going to stay with us, and food habit, complete culture, mind setup, every yoga, everything one holistic approach. That is in Ayurveda, not a single drug. So that level of the approach we can manage. Then after that 21 days, he get more energy. He got the very good, fantastic result in your life. That is the beauty of the Ayurveda. That is the reason for the people are coming to India and again that treatment for the purpose. So this area we can establish properly with our own aspect, not the modern aspect. The modern aspect is a pharmacodynamic, pharmacokinetic. It is not that possible in Ayurvedic, the single drug. It is a compound multiple drug. That level of the approach we can educate it properly. Ayurveda is a good feature. That is a needs support from the approach of the government level, university level, industry level, and publication with research. Definitely, there is a good chance, sir. Thank you.
But how about public-private collaboration? Is it happening in the Gulf countries that Indian businessmen going there and establishing? I know there are hospitals, but is there a mechanism by which there is cooperation from both sides in terms of investment in medicine?
Very good question, actually, and very relevant to today's world of business, especially when we are looking at when both sides. The GCC also is looking to improve or leverage itself as a business destination, and when India also is trying to leverage its position as a business destination. There is a lot of scope, definitely, but as Dr. Hafiz mentioned, there is a lot of competition now in this field. How do we stay relevant? How do Indian businesses stay relevant? We can look at it from different aspects. One is, like Dr. Hafiz already mentioned, Indian doctors are renowned all over the world. They can be trained in the West, they can be trained in India. And there are both categories of doctors who bring certain amount of expertise and who are working in the GCC as well as there are many working in India. So like, right now it's not only like we say that there are patients who are coming to India all the time. There are a lot of patients who are actually even coming to the GCC for treatment because the GCC countries are heavily investing in their healthcare as part of a big portion of their GDP. And we would see many world-renowned hospitals branding themselves in the GCC in this regard. Definitely from the Indian perspective, we know that healthcare tourism is here to grow. According to studies and research, healthcare tourism in India is expected to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of about 20% in the coming years. And that's a considerable amount when you look at the GDP. So looking at one, that is our manpower. We bring excellent manpower. Then the cost. So the costing of Indian healthcare is way lesser when you compare it with the costing in the GCC. How to keep it, on par is very important. The important thing is to maintain quality and standards. That's the very important thing. When a patient comes from the GCC to India, how are we going to give a certain minimal standard of healthcare? It would start right from the entry to the hospital. When they come to the hospital, because there are some patients who have come to us and said, oh, there is a certain amount of smell in this hospital.
It starts from the airport. That's what we usually say. When they come to the airport, they go to the toilet, they go to the road. So whatever happening inside the operation theater, they assess from the roads, airports, everything.
Then the next point comes is education. Mr. Francis mentioned about the education sector, but from the medical education point of view, there is huge scope of interaction between the GCC and India. There's a huge scope. Actually, there are a lot of Indian students who are actually doing their medical education, and that number is increasing in the Middle East as well.
When they are able to get medical education in the Gulf.
Yeah, so there are increasing opportunities today. All over the GCC, it's increasing. And let's not only talk about doctors here. We have a sizable number of our nurses who are in the GCC, and our nurses, especially from Kerala, are renowned and
exceptionally
good, and they are loved. When they are in the forefront. Let's not forget their contributions during the pandemic as well in the GCC all over.
And what happens to the Indian workers there? Do they get adequate medical attention? Is there an insurance system or something which...
So it all depends from country to country. Every country has their own regulations. A mandatory health insurance for every worker is on the cards in all over the GCC. That comes under the framework of basic human rights. So that is under formulation. Many of the countries have already expedited and implemented.
Even they are properly looked after. There is no real.
Yes. So many if the country doesn't have a policy, they put it upon the companies with which they work. So the companies have to take care of their health care of their workers.
Okay, finally, we cannot conclude any discussion without AI. How far has the Gulf come? How far have we gone? Have we gone further than them in the development of AI, particularly in medicine?
So AI is something very interesting. The scope of AI is huge. Actually, the potential we still have to look at. One very important practical aspect of AI would be in the field of telemedicine and mobile medicine also. Today, everything is available on the mobile. So you can just interact with a doctor over the phone. We interact with a lot of patients, all over the Gulf on a day-to-day basis.
Telemedicine is in practice.
Very much.
Across the world.
Very much. See, I'm sure for a busy clinician like Dr. Hafiz, he would not be able to, there would be a lot of patients who would want to come and see him. That's just an example. But he might not be able to cater to every patient, one-to-one basis. So when a patient actually comes to us asking, do you know this particular doctor in this particular hospital? Maybe that is where the link happens, knowing, networking, and how we can improve. This is something that, IMA Overseas is trying to do. This has to be both ways. There are many good doctors who are working in the GCC as well. and we can actually look to use their knowledge and their expertise also, from both sides.
But have we any scope of helping these countries with our own AI technology as yet?
Definitely, because actually, if you look, we have in India there is an app called as Practo. That is, very lot of people, lot of hospitals are actually linked to Practo. This is just one example, and telemedicine happens a lot, especially in the field of radiology. Radiology the labs, the laboratories. Microbiology, biochemistry, all these things, you can, pathology, you can always have expert opinions taken from both sides. And the scope is unbelievable, actually. There are many articles which are actually looking into the scope of AI. And another important thing that I'd like to mention now, since you mentioned about it, Ambassador, is that, there is a risk of many doctors losing their jobs also once AI actually comes into the field. Not so much for nurses, but more for doctors. So it's basically...
No, that will be across the board.
Especially certain specialities.
Every profession will be changed.
Yeah, especially certain specialities. But, the specialities which really need hands-on with a patient, they are here to stay.
No, but Yuval Harari, whom we all know, he gives you instantaneous analysis of technology and history. He combines both.
So I was just reading an article 3 days back about how accurately ChatGPT gave a diagnosis for a patient with a pancreatic cancer, based on the investigations, and a certain hospital couldn't diagnose it until then.
Yes, sky is the limit.
Yeah.
But another point that he made, which I wanted to mention, was he said that, human life has evolved. We were an amoeba, and it took us millions of years to become humans, let's say. He says the same process is on, but though in artificial intelligence and amoeba now, they will not take 1 million years to develop into a young, efficient force. And so he says it is more dangerous because AI will quickly catch up with us. So the evolution is the same, but what they're evolving into is something supernatural, and therefore that may have several implications for human life. Mr. Mehta, you want to add something?
So, Ambassador, I have personally recently invested in Indian founder, Indian origin German founder, a company called Partix, IIT Mumbai graduate working in AI biotech space. Just linking it from UAE India perspective, UAE is the only probably country in the world which has an AI minister. So that is their conviction, their belief, and AI is the future. But within the AI, if you look at biotech, I think that's just Partix is alone close to 300 data scientists sitting in Pune. That's kind of a capital, human capital, which we have to train the AI models. Extraordinary work is happening. And the capability, I'll give you an example here, that this company today is working for Big Pharma. They run their models, they screen close to 1 billion pages a year. They are probably 8th largest compute capability of, being the NVIDIA partner in the world, close to 1016 GPU capability installed. They told a Big Pharma on a particular drug, which they believe that this is good for Alzheimer's. They run the entire thing through their models and they said, listen, this is actually not okay for Alzheimer's, but because for a specific cancer treatment within your stomach, this is precisely the drug which should be used for that. That is the capability, and that's the kind of work which is happening in India. So I think from an AI perspective, I think today the way world is looking at AI is resolving very smaller problems, but they're not where the real big return is. I'm just looking purely from my investment lens. It's the AI biotech space where the real return is. This is the same AI which, we have the ex-naval chief sitting here. It's also from a perspective of, from the military capabilities, the same AI is going to work. So I think India has that brain power to train those models. And I think we also, because of the sheer size of our population, if we just collect our data properly with great data centers, keeping the data in India, we can train our own models, and where is the real power of India lies.
Well, that's why I was hinting at, can India be helpful to other countries?
Absolutely.